YouTube channel. I am Jessica Smith. I am a homeschool graduate and a homeschooling mother of 3, soon to be 4 boys. I started Simple Wonders because when I started homeschooling my own kids, I realized that the curriculum, the textbooks, all the things out there available for homeschoolers just really complicated things. It sucked the joy out of learning, sucked the joy out of teaching, and I wanted to find a simple way to teach, just plain methods that I could apply to my own kids based on their needs. What I found was the Charlotte Mason philosophy and her methods, and I have been reading and learning and applying them in my own home, and I have found that her simple yet effective methods bring back the joy in learning and teaching. So I started a podcast about 6 months ago where I dive down deep into the big ideas in her philosophy and help you understand her principles a little better. And I'm starting this YouTube channel to show you what her methods look like applied in a real home with real children and a real mom. I try to keep it as real as I can without making it too distractive. So I hope you enjoy this YouTube channel, that you find what you're looking for. You can simplify your homeschool, you can apply Charlotte Mason's methods, and bring back that joy in learning and teaching. In the video today, I'm going to talk about starting with Charlotte Mason's methods. Before you can start applying her methods, you need to understand her principles and her philosophy. She has a philosophy where she has outlined 20 principles that really sum up all 6 of her volumes of education. This is a lot and it's hard to get through, but you can at least go read her principles and get an idea of what her guiding principles are of education. I will put a link to those as well as my podcast where you can learn more about those principles and start applying them. But today I'm going to talk about how you can apply her methods if you're coming just from a traditional education model. So by traditional, I mean sitting at a desk where a teacher regurgitates what she's learned by reading. She tells the students, they write it down, and then they are tested like a multiple choice test based on what the teacher wants them to learn, which is usually based on standards from the state or the federal government saying this is what kids need to learn. It's not individualized at all. It is a system. Charlotte Mason is a method, meaning that there are more broad principles that you apply based on your child, their age, and their circumstance. So the first thing is to get rid of textbooks and move to living books. When I say living book, I mean a book that is written by one author. It is engaging. It's usually in a narrative form. The author is good at writing and they are passionate about the subject that they are teaching, and it feels more like a conversation between the author and the reader. This is versus a textbook which is written by multiple authors. There's sidebars. It's just basic facts, information. It does not capture attention. You find yourself wandering. You find your brain wandering. You find yourself you can't wait to be done. And it is hard to tell someone about it later. You don't have that excitement of like, oh, guess what I just read, and have something interesting to share with them. It's hard to tell someone about what you've learned. Second thing is to get rid of the busy work and the worksheets and to move on to narration and journaling or notebooking. Narration is simply telling back what you heard. So when a child has read a living book or you've read a living book to them, then they just tell you something that they learned, something interesting. They sum up the main points. And this is going to look different for every child, look different for every age. But the important thing is that they are learning to analyze, paraphrase, synthesize what they've learned. A lot is happening under the surface that you can't see. And then they can journal about it. So this is a notebook or a journal that's blank, and they are acting on that page versus a bunch of text telling the child what to do. So the child is being acted upon. For worksheets or busy work, that's going to be multiple choice quizzes, It's going to be crosswords. It's going to be closed-ended questions. It's going to be true, false. Draw a line to this, from this thing to this thing. Just busy work. It's not having them think very much. So trade in the worksheets and the busy work for having your child tell what they learned and explain it in their own words, or teach it to a younger sibling, grandparent, etc. And then they can journal or notebook. In a notebook, draw pictures, explain it in their own words, make diagrams. They are acting on that page. They're learning much more this way. The third thing is to make lessons short. In the past, we say, okay, you need to finish this lesson in this curriculum or this textbook or this worksheet, a certain amount of problems. In Charlotte Mason's schools, she only had a certain amount of time that they needed to work. It wasn't the amount of things they needed to get done. They just did high quality work for the amount of time that was age appropriate. Here's the thing. Research shows that adults can only focus for 15 to 18 minutes before their brain is exhausted and they need to move on to something else. And if that's true for adults, it's even more true for children, and the time that they can focus is going to be even less. So starting out with first grade, I usually start with a timer of about 3 to 5 minutes per subject, and just see how well they pay attention. And then I can move that up to 10 minutes or even 15 minutes for some subjects. But you want to start small. This is important because the habit of attention is paramount in a Charlotte Mason education. She believed that that is the biggest thing that children can gain from education, is learning to pay attention and focus and not get in the habit of inattention. What causes kids to become inattentive? When they have really long worksheets that are not based on their development, but just arbitrary based on curriculum or state standards. It's not tailored to their personality. They start to wander. Their brain gets tired, exhausted, and they start to think about other things. They start to fidget. You need to look at your child and meet them where they're at. So start with 3 to 5 minute lessons and add more each time that your child successfully meets that and pays attention the whole time. Up into high school, they're going to be doing 30 to 45 minute lessons, but it has to start small. Fourth thing is to vary the subjects. I spoke just a bit ago that children's brains get exhausted and they don't pay attention anymore. This is from spending too much time on one subject, or one area of the brain gets exhausted. For example, reading. Having 3 different subjects that require reading in a row, their brain's going to get exhausted. So you want to mix that in with drawing, PE, sculpting, handicrafts, science, something that is using a different part of their brain. So you have a feast of subjects. Charlotte Mason believed this is the key to helping kids be motivated to do school, interested, and paying attention, was to have a feast of subjects. And you intertwine.
Okay, tell me about the map that you made of the park.
Right brain.
What things did you put?
Left brain, then a right brain. And the last thing is that she was a huge proponent of nature study. Not just because it is good for the soul to study nature and it brings us closer to our Creator, our Heavenly Father. It hones the power of observation and attention and curiosity. These, again, are super important habits of the mind to develop in education, and it's going to serve them well in math and in science and in all areas of study. When a child is in nature, they are using all of their senses. It's one of the few activities that uses all of their senses. They are looking at things. There are different colors. There's sunshine, there is different smells, a variety of smells, different sounds going on all around them. But what's interesting, in studies with children who have sensory processing disorder, nature does not overwhelm them. It is a magical thing that gives them plenty of sensory input, but not too much. And when children's senses are stimulated, their brain actually grows. There are children in Romania from orphanages there who didn't have enough sensory stimulation. And when scientists scanned their brains, there were certain parts of their brains that were underdeveloped and physically smaller than children who had sensory input, just those 5 senses: touching, smelling, looking, and hearing. So make sure your children get out in nature and have a good foundation in the first 6 years of life. That is the primary thing in a Charlotte Mason education for the early years. First 6 years of life outside in nature, climbing, exploring, touching, smelling, tasting even. So that in a nutshell is what the Charlotte Mason method looks like. Again, this is a very simplified summary, but if you want to start now, that's what I would say is first to study her principles, her philosophy of education, and then start making those 5 changes. You may be worried about ditching your curriculum. You don't have to ditch it completely. You can use a history or a language arts or a science curriculum and add living books to that. Instead of having them fill out the worksheet, have them narrate what they read from the living book. A curriculum can be a good backbone, a good starting point for you to find books, for your child to do the experiments in the curriculum, but you don't have to follow it exactly.